This is Cashology by FMBO, a podcast devoted to the art and science of managing your money. It's like school, where your only homework is living your best financial life. Class is now in session. Welcome, and thanks for joining us on this episode of Cashology, hosted by your guide on the path to financial savvy, me, Juli. Today, I'd like to give a virtual welcome to our guest, Jamie Urban. She is joining us today after having 21 years of experience at FMBO and is currently a Senior Associate of Content Marketing. She is going to bestow upon us everything we need to know about budgeting, specifically the 50-20-30 rule. Welcome, Jamie.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be here today.
Of course. I cannot wait to get started learning more about budgeting. Honestly, I don't know what 50-20-30 means, so can you give us some information on that?
Sure, you bet. So the 50-20-30 rule is a relatively new method of budgeting that's been getting a lot of attention and gaining a lot of popularity over the last few years. And the reason why it's so popular and really catching on is because it's so simple. I think that most people would agree that having a budget, creating a budget and following it is probably important for their financial well-being. But the truth is that sometimes it feels kind of daunting and overwhelming just to get started. It's hard to know, like, if you're saving enough, if you're spending too much, if you're not paying enough towards debt. And the 50-20-30 rule really kind of solves that problem for you. So the basic premise is to take your after-tax income. So this is your take-home pay. So what's actually in your paycheck after you take out taxes, insurance premiums, and any other charges or fees that are taken out of your check. You take that amount and you divide it up so that 50% of it goes towards your needs, 20% goes towards savings and debts, and then 30% goes towards wants. For example, if your after-tax income was $2,000, for simplicity's sake, you would take that $2,000 and $1,000 would go and cover all your needs, $400 would cover your savings and debts, and then 30% would go towards wants. Now, most people create their budget on a monthly basis, and that's primarily because most of the bills that we pay are monthly obligations, but you can really create this budget based on every week or every 2 weeks, whatever works best for you.
That's really interesting. I never considered, I always, when making a budget, think I'm going to do it in a monthly increment. I never really considered that I could look at it on a weekly basis. That might make things a little more manageable for me, actually. I like that tip, Jamie. What I need and want is to understand the definition of need and want, because I think I definitely mix the two up sometimes.
And I would say you're not alone on that one. I think the lines can definitely be a little bit blurry, but let's break it down. So needs are things that you need to live, to stay healthy, to survive, basically. So these are things like your rent or mortgage payment, your car payment, or maybe even transportation to get to and from work so that you can earn money to pay the bills. It's also things like groceries, medical care, medications, basic clothing, and it also includes minimum debt payments. Now, I know that sounds a little bit weird because you don't really need minimum debt payments to survive, but you do need to make sure that you're making your minimum debt payments so that you remain financially healthy. Because if you don't make those minimum payments, then it can affect things like your credit score and your overall financial health.
That definitely clarifies things.
And then your wants. Now, these are things that you don't need to survive, but you definitely enjoy them. They make your life a little bit more enjoyable. So there are things like eating out at your favorite restaurant, going to happy hour with your friends, going to the movies, gourmet coffee runs, and maybe that extra pair of designer boots.
Okay.
And then savings and debts, that's really pretty easy. It's just as the name implies. It's saving for your short-term savings goals, such as a down payment on a home, or maybe your emergency savings account. And then it also includes long-term savings goals like saving for retirement. Now, I do want to point out that, we talked earlier about your after-tax income, and everything that comes out of your check is your after-tax income. But if you are putting money into, say, an employer-sponsored retirement plan, an HSA, or any other savings vehicle on a pre-tax basis, you want to add that amount back into your after-tax income because those amounts do count towards your savings goals.
Really good points, Jamie. I'm glad you pointed out the fact that if I have a minimum payment on a loan, I should include that in my needs. I definitely would have put that more in that savings bucket for some reason. I wouldn't have thought that's an absolute need. I need to pay that off. But you're right, financial health should be our number one goal here, and those are necessary in order to maintain that health. So, what happens if 50% of my income doesn't equal 50% of my current needs or my living expenses?
So that's a really good question. And that's one of the beauties of the 50-20-30 rule is it's flexible. It doesn't have to be 50-20-30. It's definitely a good framework and a starting point. But if your income or expenses doesn't allow you to put 50% towards needs, say it's greater than that, say you have 60% that you need to put towards your needs, that's fine. You can simply, look for ways to either cut back on expenses, such as maybe forego that coffee or skip the night out. And then you can pull those dollars from your wants section and put that towards your needs. Likewise, if say your needs equate to less than 50% of your income, say your needs make up 40%, that's awesome. You can put that extra 10% towards your savings and debt repayment, so that you can reach those goals just a little bit quicker. And trust me, your future self will definitely thank you for that.
Yeah, I think the flexibility of this 50-20-30 budgeting rule helps in adjusting yourself as you grow in your financial life. Because I'm thinking right now this way may work, but maybe as I get older, I want to put more into savings. And maybe my rent payment or a mortgage payment will go down, and therefore my living expenses will go down. And I don't want to grow my fishbowl even more and try to, have a larger lifestyle than I really need. I really like that, Jamie. I am curious though, for retirement savings, should I save for retirement first, or should I pay off my loans first? What should be a priority?
That's a really good question. And I think it's one that people often struggle with, but I would say both. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier is make sure you're making those minimum debt payments that we put in your 50% needs category. And then it's really important that you focus on making sure that you have an emergency savings account established. An emergency savings would cover things like an unexpected medical expense, a car repair, a job loss, just so that you have enough money to be able set aside to be able to pay your bills in the event that an unfortunate financial circumstance would happen your way. Now, most financial experts would agree that you should have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses set aside in the event that emergency should strike. That way, if one does, then you're less likely to turn to debt to cover that expense, and you're more likely just to be able to cover it with cash that you have set aside. And then once you have those two things really narrowed down, then it's time to focus on your long-term goals, such as retirement and or any other debts that you may have that you would like to pay off.
If any of our listeners are interested in learning more about emergency savings, our first episode with Adam Hang, another employee of FMBO, is actually up, and you can learn more about that. Jamie, I think my final question for you is there anything else about the 50-20-30 rule that you'd like our listeners to know about?
The most important thing about the 50-20-30 rule and really any type of budget is that you start creating one and living by it now, no matter what your financial situation is. The 50-20-30 rule makes it really easy to get started and to keep it going. And it also keeps you really mentally focused on saving and paying down debt, which then makes it a lot less likely that you're going to spend frivolously. But regardless of the budgeting method you choose, using one will definitely help you on your path towards financial wellness.
Awesome, Jamie. You have been a great guest. I want to tell our listeners that if you want to learn more about opening up a checking or savings account to help you reach your financial goals, go to fmbo.com to learn more. Jamie, I've really appreciated having you here. You were really great help in educating us about budgeting.
I'm so happy to be here, Julie. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and keep an eye out for more Cashology episodes coming your way soon.